Monday, July 17. Once deluded by our own desires. Ephesians 2 verse 3 is our text for today, and it reads, "All of us also lived among them, the disobedient at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath." Apart from the intervention of God, human existence is dominated not only by the external forces mentioned in Ephesians 2:2, but also by internal ones, the passions of our flesh carrying out the desires of the body and the mind. Let's look at three other texts here. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 3, "Among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lusts of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others." And we compare that with James 1 verses 14 and 15. "But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death." And 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 14. "As obedient children, not conforming yourselves to the former lusts, as in your ignorance." What does Paul mean by stating that his hearers were once by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind in chapter 2 verse 3? So now we compare Ephesians 2:3 with Ephesians 5:6. Ephesians 2:3, "Among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lusts of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others." And Ephesians 5 verse 6, "Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience." The present reality of a lost life is distressing enough, but its last day implications are more frightening still. Human beings, being by nature children of wrath like the rest of mankind in Ephesians 2:3, stand under the threat of God's judgment at the end of time. The phrase, "by nature children of wrath," points to another daunting reality as well. While still bearers of the image of God, we have come to understand that there is something deeply awry in us. Living the Christian life, then, is not just a matter of conquering a bad habit or two, or overcoming whatever trespasses and sins, as it says in Ephesians 2:1, are currently threatening. We do not just contend with sins, but with sin. We are bent toward rebellion against God and toward self-destruction. Humans, by default, are caught in a pattern of self-destructive, sinful behavior, following the dictates of Satan, as we read in chapter 2, verse 2, and our own innate sinful desires in verse 3. Believers once were by nature the children of wrath. It is important to note that Paul employs a past tense. We were by nature the children of wrath in verse 3. This does not mean that an inherent bent toward evil is no longer a reality for believers. Paul spends a considerable portion of his time in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 17 right through to chapter 5 verse 21, warning that sinful acts rooted in a sinful nature remain a threat for Christians. It does mean, though, that this old self need no longer dominate the believer, who, through the power of Christ, can put off your old self and put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness, as we've just read in Ephesians 4, verses 22 to 24. And so to finish today, who hasn't experienced just how corrupted our own nature is, even after we have given ourselves to Jesus? What should this teach us about how important it is that we cling to him every moment of our lives? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.